What's in there? What's that, deer? Read it. Oh, but I really want some. So that's a back strap that runs down the back on the side of the spine. And we just...
Better known as the New York strip.
It's a New York strip?
Yes.
So, clean it up, take off all the silver skin and the fat pieces, and this is one of the best cuts other than the tenderloin. This is what we'll use for like steaks. Dry aged for 3 days.
And that is tender.
That is a big backstrap, by the way. That's from a very big deer. That's almost the size of one from an elk. But this is the easy one to clean up because it's pretty straightforward. So we'll cut into about 1.5 pound cubes or chunks and then put it in freezer paper. Backstrap number 2, and this is just kind of an idea of what's on the back of it, the silver skin that needs to come off. And then this would be the tenderloins.
Or the fillet.
Or the fillet. That's a fillet knife that we got from just a restaurant supply store for actually a pretty good price. So if you're looking for supplies for this kind of thing, restaurant supply. That's where we got our tubs and some of our other stuff. So there's the back strap. It's cut up into chunks now, and I'm going to wrap these in plastic wrap and then freezer paper like you've seen in some of my other videos. I'll link that if you want to see how to wrap up this stuff. This is a hindquarter off the male deer. It's had the shanks removed, a buck, and now Robert's going to take and follow the muscles and remove the roasts and clean them up. So you can see he's working his way through each layer, pulling roasts off. And removing all silver skin, tendons, and funky stuff. It's a technical term. Did you know that? But as you carve through each layer, it'll just, each roast will easily come off. So from here, you can take the roasts and you can wrap them up whole. And they can be used cooked as a roast. You can cut them up and make them for stew, soups, chili. Or you can take the scraps, or you can take the roasts and cube them up and grind them. You can make sausage, just ground meat. Great for tacos, burgers, meatloaf, whatever you want. So wrap it in plastic, then wrap it in freezer paper, weigh it, and properly label it. Be as clear as possible. This is the back strap from a deer. I'm very picky on putting all the dates because I've had it where we've gotten deer in the same month and maybe one didn't taste as good as the other, etc. So be very clear. Like for the back strap, the end pieces don't slice very well into steaks. I might end up using that for something more like stir fry or something. So always label ahead. You'll never know 6 months from now what you put in there. So he's on to number 2. There's some of the meat and the roasts cut off of the hindquarter. And then that is the leg. I'm going to cut up the bones into about 2 to 3 inch pieces so that I can use them for stock later. With a fun hacksaw. This would be a doe hindquarter. You can see how much smaller it is.
It was a young deer too.
Oh, okay. Here's more roasts from one of the hindquarters. Keep wrapping. You can kind of see the color difference between the doe meat and the buck. The doe was very young and the buck was a few years old. So this will be some good eating. Okay, so here's the state of our freezer right now. This is our sausage section. We have our chorizo, some Italian, some pan sausage like for breakfasts. And then down here we have, this is all of our leftover ground elk, our 1 and 2 pounders. This is all of the ground, excuse me, this is all of the backstrap from the deer we just killed. This is all the backstrap from the elk. I moved it up since it's older. This was a small elk he killed this year, and in the back we have a bunch of shank meat, which I'll use for like stock. Up here, some duck and some various things. And down here, we have some stock bones and just some various items. I think some of this is duck and quail. Ugh. And then here's some more of the deer roasts that I've appropriately labeled. You can definitely take a deer or an elk or whatever to a processor, but you will lose a lot of the meat. You get a lot more out of it if you do it yourself. It's a little more creative, and things like the roasts and things like that, you know, you kind of have to figure out what to do with. You don't have the nice steaks cut out for you and labeled and all that stuff. Really, we just sort of, you know, I have the roasts labeled with like which ones are smaller pieces, which ones are large, solid. Depending on the striations of the meat, I kind of label what I'm going to do with them. Like, is it a stir fry kind of meat? Is it a meat I should roast or make a stew out of? You know, so I kind of pre-label them, and I know what they are, and I can get creative down the road. We use a lot of ground because you can always do ground. Tacos, burgers, meatloafs, spaghetti. Just, you can make sausage later on if you needed to. So I'd say in about 2 hours we've processed most of a large deer. We have a bunch of meat upstairs to grind, but there's the state of the freezer at the moment. Okay, so this is all the meat we have for grinding. It's all been cleaned. It just needs to be cubed and then run through the grinder with some fatty beef. We usually cut it about, say, 10 or 20% with some fatty beef, just so that you can cook it like a burger or whatever without having to worry about it. We also have some elk down there that I need to grind, so I'm just going to freeze this for now, and in a couple of weeks I'm going to thaw the whole batch, get a bunch of pre-ground fatty beef that I get custom ground from somewhere, and then I'll mix it all up and grind it all together. Okay, I think that's about it. Hubby's outside cutting me some stock bones, and we are wrapping it up. Now time to clean the kitchen.